The average person is said to spend 15 minutes in the bathroom. Why not take advantage of that time and learn something new? Presenting the 15-minute podcast on weird facts, crazy details, and funny particulars that you'll be able to enjoy while you're taking a on your free time. Welcome to This Shit with Sam Butler. Welcome to another episode of the Shit Podcast. Sam and Ram at the movies. Ram, welcome back, buddy.
Hello.
We just had a pretty good. We recorded the Spanish episode. This is the English episode. Following up the Spanish episode, we did Back to the Future Part 1 in the Spanish episode. Now we're going to talk about Back to the Future 2 and 3. And like I mentioned in the Spanish episode, this is a very special movie to me. Mainly Back to the Future 1, and that's like the hardcore fanaticism. I didn't like Back to the Future 2 when I was a kid. I've come to appreciate Back to the Future 2 as an adult, and I'm a big fan of Back to the Future 3, although I think it's the corniest one of them all. It's a little cheesy, if you want to look at it that way.
Yes.
But I really, it made you think about stuff, and I like the Western, and I thought that was a nice twist, and I think it was a fun movie.
Yeah.
Right. But I like the trilogy as a whole.
That's a very cool trilogy. It's very iconic.
It's iconic
in film.
Yeah, and I think Back to the Future fans are a little different than Star Wars fans, and I think they're different than Star Trek fans.
Yes.
I think there's just that niche of Back to the Future people that they're out there, man.
They're not that crazy.
They're not so hardcore. I've seen some hardcore fans, you know.
There's like a fair of
Back
to the Future fans.
I was in LA back in October, and I was showing John Polar Bear and Israel Garcia. I was showing them Twin Pines Mall, which is actually Puente Hills Mall in off of City of Industry there in LA.
Okay.
So I was driving around the back where they shot the whole car chase scene, right? And we pull in and I go, "This is it, guys. This is the place." And we're pulling in and there's a DeLorean. And they're going like, "There's a DeLorean." And I was like, "You're full of shit," you know. And then, "No, really, there's a DeLorean." And then we look, and then a second DeLorean shows up. And then we're like, "There's two DeLoreans. That's crazy." And then we get out and we're like, "What's going on?" They're like, "It's Back to the Future Day." So I'm not that hardcore of a fan that I didn't know that was Back to the Future Day. But it was like October 15th or November, cool. You know, whatever the day is on the keyboard. It was that day, and they actually have Back to the Future Day.
Cool, man.
And everybody that has DeLoreans goes, and they do like a car show. And there's guys that have like basic DeLoreans, and there's guys that have totally rebuilt models of the movie, and they have the flux capacitor. They have the whole thing. And so we happened to be there on Back to the Future Day, and they're like, it's going to get, and this was during COVID. So we were like, no, we don't know, but we wanted to go back. We went back at night because they said it's going to be here. We're going to be here till midnight or whatever the time is on the time machine. And we went back and there's nobody there anymore. Right.
They went back to the future.
They went back to the future, you know? but it happened because the COVID, the whole pandemic. So LA was still a little weird about doing stuff, but we were so excited to be there. And so there's people that buy DeLoreans. That's how hardcore it gets.
I know. Yes.
Right? That they want to have the actual DeLorean. I'm not that big of a fan. It's just I am a big fan. So I wanted to kick this off. Back to the Future 2 and 3. Weird facts.
Weird facts.
What do you got for me?
Okay, well, to begin with, for me, a very strange, interesting fact is that Back to the Future 2 and 3 was filmed at the same time.
Back to back.
Back to back. And they spent only $40 million, $20 million each.
Wow.
And I mean, coming from Back to the Future 1, where you got almost $300 million, you could put more money into these productions, but the studios decided to leave it like that. I mean, they trusted Robert Zemeckis. in his ability to adapt to that budget, and I think he did a very good job.
It's an amazing job if you
Yes.
think about, because Back to the Future 3, I can see it. Okay, it's a simple Western setup.
Actually, they thought about it, about Back to the Future 3 since Back to the Future 1. One day during a break, Robert Zemeckis asked Michael J. Fox where would he like to travel to, and he said the West, the Wild West. Everybody wants to go to the Wild West, so they said, okay, in Back to the Future 3 we'll go to the West.
Wow.
Yes, very interesting.
That's such a cool fact.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
And I love Back to the Future too. Also, in the first time I saw it, when I was a little kid, I didn't understand it very well because, as you said before, they travel back and forth in time a lot, and you get mixed. I mean, you get it's confused. But then, well, you grow up, you watch it again, you start to understand it, to appreciate, to see even the details that they try to, I don't know, hide. For example, the fact that Crispin Glover didn't want to act on Back to the Future 2.
Yeah.
But
yeah, he didn't get along with Robert Zemeckis.
No, I heard. Well, I've heard several things. First, that he was asking for more money. Then, in an interview many years later, he said that he didn't want it to be on part 2 because the way the character of Marty McFly was being rewarded you were getting a truck instead of getting love, and instead of being a more wholesome family. I mean, I think he wanted more money.
Yeah, I read the same thing. He was in a disagreement with Robert Zemeckis on how the movie should end.
Okay, yes.
And he's telling Robert Zemeckis, this movie should not focus on economic prosperity from time travel.
It's family.
It should focus on how the family came together.
Yes.
Right? But you have to keep in mind, this was Robert Zemeckis, and this was a 21-year-old actor named Crispin Glover.
He was 21 years?
He was 21 years old.
He looks older. Yeah. Wow.
So you get a 21-year-old kid telling you, I don't think this movie should end this way.
Oh, come on.
And you're going like, shut up.
Yeah.
And you're getting paid to act, buddy.
Yep.
You're not a director. You're not a writer.
Yeah.
So back off.
Yeah.
Right?
But he sued him.
He sued him. He sued him on part 2.
Yes.
Yeah.
For using his image, something like that.
Because it wasn't even him, though.
No, but the actor that they hired was trying to, his likeness, yes.
Yeah, his likeness. As a matter of fact, that's one of the things that I was reading too, is that he set a new precedent.
Okay, yes.
That SAG now can sue you for using the likeness of another actor.
Okay, yes.
Yeah. For example, remember in Back to the Future 2 when Michael J. Fox or Marty McFly is watching Marty McFly in the trunk of the other car,
yes,
and he watches George knock out Biff. They got sued for that too, because that was a clip from part 1 that he didn't authorize for them to use in part 2.
Motherfucker. Okay.
Right? And he got a settlement, but that changed the rules.
Okay.
You can't use an actor's likeness, which is weird to me because the times I have been on TV, they make me sign a deal that says they can use this forever. Like Chappelle said, for indefinitely and in perpetuity and in the whole universe, this belongs to us. So it's weird to me that he would actually be able to sue and get a settlement for them showing a clip of part 1.
Yeah, because they already own that.
Because they already paid them, right? So it's weird, but that changed the rules.
Okay. Yes.
Right. It's pretty crazy, right?
Yeah.
That's pretty interesting
Thank
how
you.
that movie did that.
Thank you, Crispin.
Thank you, Crispin. I don't know. I haven't seen him in very many other movies, though. You know.
No, not many movies. He's a good actor, but I think he's weird, or maybe he's little
awkward.
bit awkward, or a lot of trouble to work with.
But I think that's the thing, is like he was a lot of trouble to work with, and he had artistic opinions about how the movie should go, and that wasn't his place.
Yeah, I mean, in a commercial movie, you need to shut up and act. That's it. Yeah.
This is what you're getting paid to do, right?
But another thing that I like from this movie, from number 2, is all the things that they invented that nowadays we're using.
Yes.
The drones for news, widescreen, flat panel TV, smart home technology, video chat systems, hands-free video games,
Holograms.
wearable technology, tablet computers. I mean,
Yeah.
it's
a lot
amazing.
of it. Yeah, the tech that comes out of the imagination of artists, it's where life imitates art.
And one thing about that is that when they were writing the script, they wanted to represent a future, but not a very real future, not a realistic future. They wanted to do something more fun, more
Exaggerated.
more exaggerated, but funnier, fun, not realistic in a way that they would investigate what would happen with, I don't know, with pollution. That to the year 2015, everybody is going to be wearing masks or something.
Yeah.
Not in 2020, but
Yeah. But that is a very interesting thing because they had stuff like that shark they came holographic shark, Jaws 19, right? They were making fun of Jaws and how that movie just kept having more and more and more movies like sequels.
Big franchise. Yeah.
It's a big franchise. Well, we call it a franchise now, but back then it was like part 2, part 3, part 3. I remember in Airplane, that movie Airplane, they had the same gag, I think, where they had Rocky 18, like he's like or Rocky 25 or something. Not that far off, right? But one of the things that was pretty crazy about that, I had the thing right here, Jaws 19. So the town square is a holographic advertising for Jaws 19. This was released in 1989. There had already been 4 Jaws films. So it wasn't unreasonable to suggest there might be 26 years that followed. But, it changed. But one of the things that was crazy is that when you were watching the Jaws 19 on the screen, it said directed by Max Spielberg. Max Spielberg is the name of Steven Spielberg's son.
Okay.
So that little Easter egg is in there where it's like, and it's also like a gag to Steven Spielberg. Because you mentioned it in the other episode, but how they pitched the movie to 40 different studios, and Steven Spielberg got behind it.
Yeah, helped them a lot. Yes.
But he wanted to produce it as Amblin Entertainment. And they're like, we don't want people to know or think that we only have work because you back us up. We want to do this on our own, and that's why Amblin didn't produce the movie.
Okay.
But they did it. So this was kind of a gag,
So
that's pretty cool.
Wow. Another thing that I read is that they offered the part for Ronald Reagan in Back to the Future 2. They wanted to make him the major of Hill Valley.
Yeah.
But he didn't want it to appear because he was still the president, right? Or he just ended his
ended his term. Yeah.
But in, I believe, one of his last speeches, he quoted Back to the Future saying, "We don't need roads in the future."
Yeah, where we're going, we don't need roads.
We don't need roads, baby.
Yeah, he was a fan of the very first movie.
Yeah. He read it. He saw it at the White House with his wife and.
Yeah, and the reason he was a fan was because there's a scene in part 1 where he says, "Well, who's the president of the United States?" It's Ronald Reagan.
Oh, come on,
the actor. Yeah, he goes, and then he sees the movie camera and goes, "I guess you do have to be good looking to be president with portable movie studios, right?" So that's that was the gag in the deal.
Yeah.
There's another in this scene, and we haven't even talked about part 3 yet.
That's for later, man.
I think we're gonna have to leave part 3 for another episode because we're already hitting our time frame. This is part 2. We'll do part 3. We'll do part 3 in the Spanish episode.
Sure.
The next Sam and Ram
at
the movies, because part 3 has a lot of stuff I want to talk about.
A lot of
stuff. But Cubs win the World Series in part 2, right?
Yeah.
And this was a gag because in 1989 they hadn't won the World Series, and they had that curse since 1907.
Okay.
Right?
Yes.
So it was funny that the Cubs would win the World Series in 2015.
Yeah.
That was a gag.
And with that, there was another team that was against the Cubs.
Yeah, it was Miami.
But
it
they
didn't exist.
Yes.
It didn't exist in 1989. So that's one of those things that you can add to that list.
Yep.
That actually came about after the fact because of the movie.
Yeah.
Right.
And then let's cross our fingers for the hoverboard.
The hoverboard. The Nike sneakers.
Yeah, I want those.
The Nike sneakers, the rehydrating food that we don't have that yet, where we get a little pizza and creates a big. That would be awesome. Yeah. We do have fake windows with scenery.
Okay, like plasma TV.
Yeah, like plasma. But we actually have stuff like that. That's LED that makes you feel like you're outside, but you're actually inside.
Wow.
You know, that technology exists.
That's cool.
We don't have we're not that good with the weather. You know.
Okay.
But Back to the Future 2, amazing movie. You can appreciate it more now than we did then. A lot of the stuff, if you look at the window where he buys the sports almanac, there's some hidden Easter eggs in there. There's a Roger Rabbit, right? There's a Roger Rabbit. There's a Macintosh computer. There's a lot of stuff that you can go in there and you go, oh wow, that's an antique store, in 2015, and so it's an awesome trilogy. It allows us to touch a little bit of our nostalgic side. You know, the '80s cafe. I mean, when this movie came out, which was like 1990. We had just finished the 80s. It wasn't that long ago. But this was talking about the early 80s, you know?
Which is very different.
Yeah, Max Headroom and Gunsmoke, the video games, the arcades. I mean, all that stuff. By the way, the kid with the arcade.
Elijah Wood.
It's crazy, right?
Yeah. And for me, it's a very important movie because it's one of those productions that they got so lucky for choosing that cast.
Yes.
And that makes it a wonderful film, a stronger film, yes. I mean, if they had kept Eric Stoltz, maybe
it would have flopped.
We wouldn't have a Back to the Future 2 or 3. And that's it. I mean, they were very lucky for choosing those actors and actresses.
Yeah. It's a great trilogy. We got stuck on movie 2. We're going to do movie 3 and the next Sam and Ram at the Movies, part 3. But appreciate you looking up some info. This was a lot of fun. I like this format where we focus on one particular movie. We'll talk about some more movies, but
of course.
Thank you for joining me again, Ram. Where can people find you on social media?
On Instagram as Doobies Boobies.
Doobies Boobies. Yeah. Sounds funnier in English. But it sounds funny in Spanish too. You can find me as Tu Amigo Sam on social media, as well as my YouTube channel. And you can find me at all of the podcast platforms as Ta Cagado Podcast. With that, we wrap up this episode of the Shit Podcast. Thank you guys for joining in.